This meeting will come to order on May 25th, 2010 at 1 o'clock. We have service awards or
Well, invocation.
scholarship. Invocation. Michael Minix from the Lincoln Elementary School principal. Val Centro, is he here today? And Michael, would you also lead us in the pledge after the invocation?
Happy to. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Our gracious Father in heaven, God, we come before your holy presence this afternoon with bowed heads and humble hearts, thanking you today for all of your manifold blessings, your goodness, your kindness to us. Father, we pray today for wisdom and understanding. We pray for a blessing that you can just bless our communities and our families. Bless the board today in the name of Jesus. Father, we pray that you give them wisdom and knowledge as they make decisions that's going to impact our entire county. Father, we thank you and we praise you. We ask it all in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Any actions to be taken out of closed session?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, moving on to presentations, and we're doing service awards first, or
Service awards.
awards first?
Yes. All right. You got change? Okay.
Mr. President, members of the board, members of the public, it's my pleasure to award this service award, the Certificate of Recognition and Service Pin Replica of the District Emblem, presented to John Kilps for 10 years of loyal and faithful service to the Imperial Irrigation District.
For 10 years of service, Maria Rosario Bermudez, Business Analyst 2 in the Human Resources Department.
We went to school together. Life was better to her than me.
For 10 years of service, Jesus Rivera, Distribution Estimator in the Energy Department.
There we go. Perfect.
For 15 years of service, Leticia Ayala, Secretary Administrative in the Energy Department. For 20 years of service, Manuel Medina, Carpenter Foreman, the Administrative Support Services Department. For 20 years of service, Hilda Romo, Senior Engineer in the Water Department. For 20 years of service, Jasmine Wong Delgado, Business Analyst 2 in the Energy Department. For 25 years of service, Ferrol Ansaldo, Control Operator 2 in the Energy Department. For 25 years of service, Gilbert Caldera, Superintendent Drainage Maintenance in the Water Department. For 25 years of service, Carrie Van Beber, Officer of Security Claims and Investigations in the Human Resources Department. His wife did come.
She's here.
Yes.
Should we have her?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Hey, get. For 35 years of service, Guillermo Uriad, Superintendent Generation Plants in the Energy Department. For 35 years of service, Dwayne Kellum, hydrographer in the Water Department. And for 40 years of service, Mike Trump, Superintendent, Customer and Operations in the Energy Department. Is there anyone else here that is on the list to receive a service award and I didn't call your name? Okay, that ends our service awards.
Rick, John, where's Rick? Yeah, Rick. Why don't you go for it?
Good afternoon, everyone. My privilege to give out the IID scholarships, and we had a number of really good applicants. I'd like to introduce the committee. We have Jennifer Goodsell. We call her Wonder Woman back here. Hi, Oscar. She got us some extra funding. Thank you to our GM, Brian Brady, and our CFO, Greg Broking. I have Olivia and Sammy Alcaraz. And Dee Bradshaw is our chairperson, and she is out on a tour today, so she couldn't make it, so I'm her steed.
3-hour tour.
And let me see if I can do these without breaking them. We advertise a $500 scholarship, but because we got a little extra money, everybody's going to get something. Our first one for $500 is Kristen Casillas from Southwest High School. Congratulations. And
take a picture.
oh, you have to go through the gauntlet. And her mom is Patty Casillas. I saw her. She's over there. She works in General Services Department. In the fall, she will be attending California State University, Fullerton, where she plans to pursue a BA in Theater Arts and a BA in Education to become a drama teacher. Doesn't mean she's a drama queen?
Yeah.
I feel funny having my back towards you.
Tony, we've got one more.
Our next recipient is for $500, and that goes to Michelle Ojeda. Congratulations. And you need to go through there also. She's from Imperial High School. Her mom, Miriam Palos, works in the training section. Says human resources, but she works in the training section. Michelle is going to San Francisco State University in the fall to earn a BA in social work.
Are the parents here? Parents here? Parents here? Oh, they should come up. Yeah.
Come on, Momo. How about the boy child?
Shy?
Marion's your mom and you're shy?
I'm not their kid. I'm a homeless
They made me come here.
Our next recipient is for $750, and that goes to Miriam Carmona from Imperial High School. Congratulations. And her mom, Maddie Carmona, works in the energy department. In the fall, she'll be working for her sociology degree at the University of California, San Diego. All right. She then plans to go to law school in order to become an attorney for the FBI or a behavioral analyst agent for the FBI.
Wow. Yeah. She back there? Yeah.
Our next recipient is for $750, and that's to Monica Hadagi from La Quinta High School. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Ruben? I'm glad we shop at the same place. Our next recipient is for $1,000, and that's to Christina Hernandez from Central Union High School. Congratulations. Go Spartans. Her mom, Patty Hernandez, works in the Human Resources Department in the Benefits section. Kristen is going to Imperial Valley College in the fall, then transferring to the University of San Diego. She'll study computer science and hopes to work with a technology company like Google. I feel like I'm announcing for like Miss America. And the entertainment section is...
Come on, Coolio.
Thank you. Our next recipient also is receiving $1,000, and that's to Kyla Hutchinson from Imperial High School. Kayla? Her dad, Tim Hutchinson, works in the Human Resources Department in the safety section. She will attend San Diego State University in the fall to study psychology or liberal studies with the goal to become a teacher.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Our last recipient, I've actually known since he was an embryo. He just doesn't remember. He has not missed a day of school since kindergarten, and Imperial High School kind of wavered him today so he could attend this meeting. It's for $1,500, and that's to Gabriel Delgado Wong. His mom, Jasmine Wong, who you guys have already met, works in the energy department. He will be attending the University of California, San Diego to pursue a BS and an eventual MS degree in astrophysics. And during this photo shoot, Gabe, if you'll see this nice lady back here, Vanessa Castillo, she has also another $1,000 scholarship from the PSA. It beats going to the casino. That's it. Thank you all very much. Students, before you run off to do other important things, Mr. Shetler out here would like to have you all go outside and take a group picture. It'll be for an FBI lineup in future years. Thank you for coming. Good job. Thank you.
Okay, here comes the fun. Yep. On the 8th, yeah. That's when they came to. Nope. Yeah.
What are they doing? Congratulations.
Oh.
Okay, moving forward, this is a public meeting, and this is a time for public comment. At this time, you may address the board on items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of IID, but not an item on the agenda. Those who wish to address the board should come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, and you limit it to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Schradel. I'd like to ask Laura and John Hunter to pass out these items that may be here that you've not received yet. I'm here because I and 2 members of the board have been stiff-armed by your general manager to place items regarding human safety on this today's board agenda in clear violation of both your governing policy and the Brown Act. I first bring your attention to IID board policy. If you have in front of you, it's the passed on July 24th, 2007, agenda planning number G4. In order to have an item placed on the agenda, a director of the board shall communicate a request within a reasonable period of time prior to the meeting, preferably in writing to the secretary of the board. It shall be the goal of the district staff to facilitate the placement of all director requests of the agenda whenever possible. That was not done. Mr. Abadi requested that a report on his trip be on the agenda. That's not on the agenda. Mr. James Hank requested that staff be directed to study the timeline and funding, et cetera, for the installation of safety equipment. That is not on the agenda. Furthermore, members of the public may request to place matters on the board agenda. That's again according to the agenda planning policy number G4. And it shall be the goal of the district staff to facilitate the placement of all reasonable public requests on the agenda whenever possible. That was not done. I submit to you not only this board policy, but I've passed out a 4-page document here that it lists the last 2 pages, the Brown Act, direct quotation from the Brown Act. A member of a legislative body, that means any of the board members here, may take action, not request, may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. That was done. The general manager stiff-armed this and refused to put it on the agenda. Furthermore, I submitted a letter on a timely basis, which is 1 week before this meeting, for 5 items to be on the agenda regarding relative to public safety. They include, and you'll see my letter of May 17th addressed to the Secretary of the Board as per your policy. This will confirm that as a private person, I'm requesting that the following items be placed on the May 25th, 2010 IID Board Meeting. Number 1, review of the Buffington. I've been turned off here, maybe on purpose. Okay. Review of the 2001 Buffington final report regarding buoy lines in the All-American Canal, accuracy of representations contained therein, and actions by the board as a result thereof. I won't go into the detail, but that was a farce of a report, and I am not entitled to, because of being stiff-armed by the general manager, to be able to give you that information. Review of legal liability of IID for drownings. Review of the 2009 Fleetemeyer study regarding buoys in the line section of the All-American Canal. Review of follow-up on studies to date by San Diego County Water Authority of proposed buoy systems in the line section of the canal. And number 5, authorization by the board to immediately expend without further study the sum of $250,000 for the installation in the line portion of the canal, the maximum number of buoy lines that dollar amount will purchase. I then submitted on Wednesday, which was sufficient time to be given to all the board members, detailed information on these 5 items. Yet, as I relate in a email letter that I sent yesterday afternoon to Mr. Brady, as you most likely know, I was told by members of your staff, and this is before I had a copy of the IID board policy, I was told by members of your staff, namely Gloria and Kevin, as well as the secretary that answers the phone when Gloria is not in, that a member of the public can cause an item to be placed on the agenda for information or action by submitting a request in writing the end of the business a week before the proposed meeting, which I did. And as he definitely knew, I made such a written request Tuesday afternoon. I then informed by Kevin Kelly that such a request had to be submitted by a board member. That's inaccurate. That's contrary to your policy. I obtained the support of 2 members of your board, namely Mike Abada and James Hank, who clearly and distinctly informed Kevin Kelly of their support for these 5 items to be on the agenda. I was informed on Thursday in a phone call by Kevin Kelly that you, Mr. Manager, had overridden Mr. Abadi's and Mr. Hank's request. I don't know under what authority, certainly not the policy of the board, nor the Brown Act. I was unable to reach Mr. Abadi or Mr. Hanks the balance of the day. On Friday a.m., still early enough under the Brown Act to have those items placed on today's agenda, I talked with Mr. Abadi, who stated he had not withdrawn his support of the items being on the agenda, but the only person in the IID office was Kevin Kelly, that everyone else had Friday off. Very convenient. Your explanation, please, as I addressed to Mr. Brian Brady, the courtesy of a timely communication from you regarding this issue, and by what authority you exercise the prerogative of disallowing the requested items being placed on the agenda. If you will quote authority of a prior board decision to defer discussion of safety measures to a later meeting, please attach a highlighted section of the minutes of the meeting in which that action was addressed, as well as the previously noticed agenda, which authorized the board to take action to establish an unassailable timeline for the discussion of any aspect of water measures in any portion of the canal. Also, last week, Mr. Abadi requested he be given the opportunity to give a report on his findings from D.C. relative to AAC safety measures, including the possibility that he would be asking the board to take action or direct staff to take action as a result of such meeting. I find no reference whatsoever in the agenda to a report from Mr. Abadi or the possibility of any action as a result thereof. Last week, Mr. Hanks presented a document to the Secretary of the Board which read in part, I am calling for staff to bring a resolution to the next meeting, which is this meeting, identifying a plan of attack. Where's that plan of attack? As to the proposed safety measures, complete with financing and timelines necessary to bring this issue to closure in a timely manner. This item is not on the agenda, and I'd like to address the general manager why it is not on this agenda. your explanation why the agenda fails to address these two requests or make any reference to staff plan of attack as to the proposed safety measures. And I bring your attention to the Brown Act, which is the third page of the handout. That is directly where it says a member of a legislative body may take action direct staff to place the matter of business on a future item. This is in clear violation to the Brown Act. It is also in clear violation of the intent of the Brown Act. I'll quote from the introduction to the Brown Act. Most people think of the Brown Act only as requiring you 72 hours in advance of a meeting. There's many other requirements placed on boards and staff relative to public meetings. And this is in the preamble, the very first paragraph of the Brown Act, which runs some 20 or 30 pages single-spaced. The people in delegating the authority do not give their public servants, and that includes you, Mr. Manager, the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. I ask this Board of Directors to direct their staff to comply with the Brown Act, to comply with your own governance policy, and to place items on the agenda in accordance with those documents.
Thank you, David. Are there other comments from the public?
My name's Oscar Gonzalez, and I brought a time clock here because Anthony always robs me of time, and I want to make sure I get 5 minutes. I was born and raised in Calexico, but I lived in El Centro since 1986. My grandparents came here in the early 1910s, or my grandfather. I would like this board, not today, but maybe at the next immediate meeting, to take action on that bill in Arizona. And I know Wally, Board of Supervisor, says that it's because of the illegal drugs and a bunch of stuff like that, but I reminded him today that, see, when the gringos go to Ensenada and they go to Mexicali, I was born and raised here, and all over 2,000 miles from Matamoros to TJ, they think they own Mexico. They smoke pot, they drink, they're loud, and they cause crime. And I don't condone the fact that when Americans get killed over there, but they're asking for it. Many of them are. And we have children, a lot of us. I know in the early 60s, before that, they used to say it was Mexicans and blacks that did dope, heroin and pot. But when the hippie movement came, America saw the other side of the coin, and they saw the hippies. But anyway, in conclusion, I think that the reason German people were not placed in concentration camps in World War I was because they were white. You couldn't distinguish them. Nevertheless, the Japanese were placed in concentration camps because you could distinguish them.
Oscar, are you leading toward an IID jurisdiction matter? Okay.
That's right, yeah. I still have 3 minutes. So please don't.
No, are you leading to an IID jurisdiction matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you may dispute it. I think it is. It's called justice, social justice. So I think just like Calexico, just like a lot of other municipalities and utilities, I think the board needs to take a stand. I think this is discrimination. I think it's discrimination at its worst. All of you rose your hand and said, I'm going to support the Constitution. I'm not an attorney, but I'll bet you 9 to 1 that it's going to be ruled unconstitutional. Just the fact that it's a law doesn't necessarily make it legal. That's why you have civil disobedience. Muhammad Gandhi, Cesar Chavez, Martin Luther King, among others. You guys are policymakers, and you guys represent our constituents. 90% are Mexican, not Latinos. And I hope you guys take issue with that and don't pretend that it doesn't have jurisdiction, because it does. You represent us, and I take offense to that. The fact that you're in District 1 is not indicative that you can't represent me. You represent the farmers and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments from the...
Yeah, I'm John Hunter, Citizens for All American Canal Safety, Escondido, California. I'll talk more in the water session, but I wanted to give you as a prelim of this. And I'm going to present a 7-page proposal, the water session in about an hour. But what I wanted to focus on for just a minute here was I finally did look at the safety results of that testing that was done a month ago, and it was a joke. Basically, you set the lines up, your guys set the lines up, so that if a person tried to cross from Mexico, he was guaranteed to die, okay? I kid you not. This was contrived by some freak, or maybe a committee of unusual people whose desire was to kill Mexicans. And I, by the way, am a right-wing guy. I don't really love Mexico. I think there's a lot of narcos and traffic down there and bad stuff happening, but you shouldn't kill the people just because they come north. And basically, when I saw what went behind closed doors for a year and a half, you burned $100,000 to contrive a buoy line so it actually tilt. They angle up at 37 degrees from the south side to the north side, so that if a person is crossing, he's got to swim up water. He's got to swim up water for 300 feet, which is physically impossible. So some guy from Oaxaca is going to try and cross this thing you've set up. He goes against the grain. He swims against the tide for 300 feet. He falls off and drowns. Basically, in my opinion, you caused that. And I know you guys were probably not aware of it because you're not micromanaging your coordinating committee. Those guys ran amok. They ran amok, and you need to take them back and rein them in. I would fire them all instantly if it was me. I think that what they did was a travesty. It's ludicrous, and it's going to kill people. And now you fall in on the north side, Mr. Kelly, fall on the north side. What happens then? You're an American border agent. You fall in, you grab for the line, you get pulled downstream 300 feet. You can't go back to the north side. So what these jokers did was they set up a situation that was lose-lose. Usually you go for win-win, right? You go for win-win. I win, you win. Okay, we shake on it. Lose-lose. Okay, the only people that won were sort of the nut fringe who somehow contrived, and I would include Hala Razak and Maureen Stapleton and some of your guys here who think it's sort of funny to ground people. I don't. I'm going to represent in about an hour this little girl here, Alejandra, who drowned, who would be here today if it wasn't for the lack of guts on this board. This little Alejandra would be here today. She drowned in '06, saving her older sister in your canal. One of 550 people. About 100 since 2000 that drowned in the canal. So you need to take some action now. I'll shut up now. Thanks.
Before I read, I'm going to pass another flyer to you guys. That's all right. That's okay. You can have it. Laura Hunter with Citizens for the All-American Canal Safety. I'm going to read an email that was sent to John by John Carlos Frey. He couldn't be here. The email says, John, sorry I didn't get back to you soon. I have been a very busy trip. On my behalf, please let the IID know that I was responsible for getting 60 minutes to cover the story about the All-American Canal. I have also been involved with MSNBC, NBC, and Telemundo, as well as Univision, which will air on June 1st to a larger audience than 60 Minutes. I am currently speaking with the representatives from the Today Show and the New York Times. When I had the opportunity to address the IID board, I told them I will make the drownings public. Stella Mendoza asked if I was threatening them. It is not a threat. I have followed through on my promise, and I will continue to raise national awareness until some concerted effort is made to mitigate death. The repeated death by drowning in the All-American Canal is a gross violation of human rights, and those in positions of leadership should be held to account. For your information also, Telemundo was with us yesterday in the All-American Canal and the cemetery, and you can see their video tomorrow between 6 and 7. Univision will be June 1st. MSNBC will be on Wednesday. I do not know the time. But I think everybody knows what's going on here. And it's not just John and I. Through all these years, now it's John Carlos Frey, now it's David, and many more probably will be joining us in our effort for you to do the right thing. As we promised, you are famous, and probably some more people than others are famous. So please, I beg you, do your part. Let's see who's going to win the leadership award in doing and guiding this board to put those safety features. I'm speaking as a mother, like I told you many years ago. I am the voice of the voiceless, and I will not stop coming to these meetings until something gets done. I have seen the suffering of Alejandra's mother. If you dare to watch, Stella, you're a mother, watch that Univision and Telemundo interview with those mothers, with those brother and sister of Alejandra. They saw Alejandra drown. Those kids are traumatized for life. They were not able to speak about it, but probably you will see an interview with them. I do not know if any of you knows what is to lose a person like they did. But I beg you, once more, here's your chance. Everybody knows. I have received a lot of emails, and they don't speak very highly of you, Stella. Let's put it that way, okay? So everybody knows what they're doing and what they're not doing. I'm not here to criticize anybody. I'm just telling you what is going on. And I really appreciate if you take this matter in your hands and start putting those buoys, those ladders, anything that can keep a person alive. I don't care if you catch them, deport them, but don't let them drown. If this were, like I said before many years ago, if this were animals, cows, dogs, horses, I bet you something could have been done a long time ago. What is stopping you from taking action? It is a joke to see with your principles, your mission. It is a joke. What are you guys doing? Pretend that it's not happening. It's still happening. 3 more people have drowned on this year. What are you waiting for? What is stopping you? Money? You don't think a person's life worth some money? When you are willing to spend huge amount of money, which is nothing for a life, and your video recording system on this room, what are you talking about? Think about it. I do not know how can you go to sleep and not think about those mothers, those wives, those children that lost a person in the canal. So it's time to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Orby Hanks, Raleigh, California. During David Scholar's presentation, there were a couple of questions came up that I would like to address the board on. And you notice I'm wearing an IID cap. I support the IID, and I had a young Indian boy when I was a principal at Needles District that had a problem of attending school. And I caught him one day fishing down in the Colorado River and asked him about going to school and what the problem was. He said, "Oh, I like school. It's just the principle of the thing that I don't like." And we've got some principles here, I think, that are in question that was very vividly presented by David. For fear of mispronouncing his last name, I'll just call him David. There were 2 board members mentioned that are several times on the tail end of a 3-2 vote, and that's been made public and commented on several times, several places. Now, also, the board rules, regulations, procedures, etc. were read. The Bion Act was presented. Some of us, maybe I'm the only one here, but I think there are others there, would like to hear what the board's reaction is and what it is done. There has been suspicion but the way the mop plops sometimes, would there have been a difference on this item on the agenda if a third party had made a presentation? That has been alluded to, that board items only get presented if there's a 3-2 majority by checking with the board members in advance. Maybe Mr. Kelly might be able to answer that question, but I'm not going to ask him because he might not want to tell me who told him to do it that way. But I would hope that this question could be answered, that we would have some of that information presented before the next board election. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Today, Bruce?
I'll speak as fast as you walk. I didn't come here to address this issue. I don't know that I'm enamored by it. Certainly, I realize that we paid for the canal. I know we did that, but for whatever reason, the Bureau won't give us title. So if they want to keep title, then I guess they want some of the responsibility. But that said, you know, it's damn, John, I'm not an activist. I don't quite know how to get up here and breathe fire. I'm not trying, because it isn't my intent to breathe fire. There comes a time when if something's right, regardless of what you think, if it's the right thing to do, maybe it ought to be done. I say that because, gosh, I don't even remember what year it was. I know you guys had water deals in the desert. 2002. And I called the Bureau, and they had $200,000 that they said these guys could build buoys with. And I remember calling Robert Rubio, and it was, I think it was Bob Cherry from the Bureau. Talked to him direct, and then he called me and said, we've got $200,000 if that'll help. And I said, they could use it for the buoys. And he said, yeah. Now, I don't know what happened, but obviously the Bureau was okay with it back in 2000. And I thought it was the right thing to do. It wasn't publicly the most popular thing to do, but that was before the concrete. Now, you know, we told everybody in the world that would listen that when the section that was concrete, there was grave concern that it wasn't going to be wide enough, wasn't going to carry enough water, and we told them, in fact, it had been engineered. And we were reasonably sure by all engineering estimates we got that it would carry the same amount of water, just a hell of a lot faster. Well, okay, it seems to be carrying the same amount of water, a hell of a lot faster. So obviously if someone enters that, their chances of getting out are diminished substantially. Now, I've always been one to say, put your money where your mouth is. I didn't make it public knowledge. And I didn't do it for any accolades or pats on the back. I donated my entire IID salary for 8 years to the poor in the Mexicali Valley. Now, my guess is probably not 15, 20 people in this whole valley know that. But I did. Every damn penny of it. And even augmented it. Money out of my company. I paid for funerals. I paid for schools, uniforms, gasoline. One time I had 15 old cars. I bought them at the drug addict car wash over here, and we ran them down there with my license plates on, took them down. And if they got caught, they just took it away, so we just take them another car. Hell, well, it's cheaper to do that than get it out impound. We did that on a routine basis because people down there were making, I think it was $6 a day. And if they didn't have a car, they couldn't even go make that. So we did it. Why? Because it was the right thing. Not because we expected any return, because there's not going to be any return. In this case, I realize we don't own the canal, and I realize there are limitations to what we can ask and do. Well, there's no limitation to what we can ask, but it seems like the right thing to do. There's no reason, and I've heard it before, they don't need to enter the canal. They don't. But then, you know, there's a lot of things people don't need to do, but they do, and I don't know if they should die for it. But anyway, it's not going to stop. They're going to enter, and as they enter, probably going to die. So, is it the right thing? I believe it is. Is it popular? Probably not, but it's the right thing. Now, that said, again, back to putting your money where your mouth is, I just want everybody to know that, and I don't want to bring any embarrassment to you, Mike, but heard a lot of negative things about Jimmy and Mike Abadi, and you know, we've known each other a long time. And I got a call from Jimmy Abadi about a month ago. He said, hey, he'd been down to my place down there. We've been hunting a couple, 2 or 3 times, way back when. And he said, hey, we want to help. Well, what do you want to do? Well, we want to help because we know this earthquake hurt people. Well, I give. I'm just not used to being around people, other people that'll give. Make a long story short, Jim Abadi, Mike Abadi, and myself went down to the little Pueblo de Caimon, where my place is. There's now 6 families, 5 always, 6, 1 comes and goes. Anyway, 33 people. And we got enough resources, food, sleeping bags. That man drove to San Diego and bought tents for every family down there on his own dime. Bought the tents, brought them here, and I got them down there. Nothing was cheap. And by God, I will tell you, 32 people, we got food, we got shelter, and money for them to buy the incidental things they needed for 2 months. Because he cared. Was it popular? I don't know. Was it the right thing? Sure was. So come on. Prod them. If you got to prod the interior, prod them. If you got to prod the bureau, prod them. I'm not, an avid freak of anybody breaking the law. But I sure don't think people should have to die. It's been long enough, and there was $200,000 set aside for this. I don't know what happened to it, but way back when. So the bureau knows, and they were ready to do something. Look it up. Find out. Get it done. It's the right thing.
Thank you, Bruce. Any other public comments?
My name is Steven Castillo from El Centro, and about a month ago I came before the board asking for if there was going to be a report concerning the effectiveness of the layoff, and I'm curious if the district is still considering the request and if there's a chance that it may be presented at a future board meeting.
Mr. President, members, we did give you a verbal report on the, this is on, I assume you're talking, Steve, about the electric side.
Yeah, the energy reduction in force.
About how many positions were eliminated, how many positions created, in terms of what the net effect of that was. The net effect was one person, while we had a position for him, they decided to retire. That was the net effect. Steve had a bunch of other questions.
Right.
I'd be happy to get together with you, Steve, and I think we satisfied the board's interests. If you'd like to get together, we can talk about that.
That would be fine.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. If there are no more public comments, we will move to comments from the board. We will start with Director Hanks.
No comment.
Director Menville.
The only thing I want to say is I know we're in the All-American Canal discussions and drownings and safety issues, but I do want to say that in the occurrence that comes out, with on the IID that this month is safety message warns kids to keep clear of canals, and I'll just read this. For more than 40 years, the IID Summer Water Safety Campaign has helped keep children safe and away from the district's extensive open canal system. Safety message carried by campaign mascot Dippy Duck will continue to be presented throughout Imperial Valley schools through the middle of June. Campaign has always carried the message that everyone needs to keep away from canals. If the children are going to swim, they should only visit safe swimming areas where an adult or lifeguard is present. New to the campaign this year is the district's partnership with the Imperial Valley Public Libraries to promote these institutions as yet another safe, cool place to head during the hot summer months. Again this month, the IID Board of Directors and the Imperial County Board of Supervisors have proclaimed May to be the Water Safety Month in the Valley as a continuing reminder of the value of this program. Employees are encouraged to share the safety message with their families and friends by serving as water safety ambassadors for the district all summer long. Make sure your own children, everyone you know, plays heed to Dippy Duck's message. General Manager Brian Brady urged employees, and if you spot someone youngster or adult who has ventured too close to a canal, please warn them away. Since 1966, the IID Water Safety Campaign has helped construct psychological fence around the valley's 3,000 miles of open canals and drains. Districts credit cooperation and participation of the Valley schools, administrators, and teachers with making the program possible. More than 24,000 students in preschool through 6th grade will hear the safety message in assembly presentations and will receive reminder gifts that include activity books and handy string backsacks. Dippy's current motto, be aware, be smart, be safe, ties in with a new partnership with the public libraries to promote them as a place to stay safe and cool once school is out. And the theme of the California Library Association 2010 summer reading program is Make a Splash, Read. Keep an eye on Dippy Duck's website for updates, new games, and activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to Director Abadi.
Yes, I had the opportunity to represent the district in Washington, D.C. last Wednesday and Thursday. I met with Commissioner Mike Connor of the Bureau of Reclamation, former FERC Commissioner Sadine Kelly, and multiple members of the California Congressional Delegation to engage what I consider a constructive dialogue on emergencies issues in the both water and energy service area of the Imperial Irrigation District. My meeting with Commissioner Mike Connor focused on issues ranging from water storage projects to the importance of large hydro as a fixed component of our portfolio toolbox. We spoke about the loss of hydroelectric power on the All-American Canal as a result of the construction of the Drop 2 reservoir and other opportunities available to the district to counteract the impact of that loss on our local ratepayers. We also discussed in detail the safety measures on the lined portion and unlined portion of the All-American Canal and steps that can be taken by both the Bureau and others in the IID to expedite and implement these measures. We also spoke about the Salton Sea and informed them of the symposium on the 27th, and if not all, most will be sending reps to there. Other meetings were used as an opportunity to update the IID delegation on our continued discussions with the Bureau and the IID's own renewable energy program. Overall, the meetings went pretty smoothly, and the IID received positive feedback from all those that we met. The Office of the American Affairs Policy and the Internal Affairs of the U.S. Department of Energy has recently contacted Patton Boggs, IID's FERC attorney, and inquired as to whether the district would be interested in learning more about a recent incentive from the Obama administration that would help facilitate green energy projects that cross the borders between the U.S. and Mexico. Given IID's goal of promoting renewable energy development and the relationship with the CFE and the location of the IID's transmission system near the Mexican border, I would like to ask my fellow board members to join me in requesting that our general manager investigate these opportunities associated with the initiative and report them back to the board at our next meeting. We also were aware of extensive damage from the irrigation system in Mexico as a result of the Easter Sunday earthquake and subsequent aftershocks. The current state of the Mexicali Valley economy cannot support the costly repairs of these irrigation facilities, and Mexico is facing the realization that if it is unable to use its full acre-foot entitlement from the Colorado River. I would like to propose that the IID consider facilitating the purchase of the unused entitlement for another Southern California water agency, which would enable Mexico to use these proceeds from the sale to rebuild the irrigation system. A letter will be sent to that effect. I will have more to say about the All-American Canal safety measures and general water department matters on today's agenda. I know Government Affairs also spoke with Joe Rader, our lobbyist that was with me on all the meetings. Is there anything else I missed or you had to add? Am I left out? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Body. Director Mendoza?
No comment.
Okay, moving on to informational item. Governance.
Mr. President, I just wanted to...
General Manager comments?
Just housekeeping, we would respectfully pull item 17 for future consideration. That's La Quinta sewer project. There's some more work to do as staff level. That's item number 17, so we'd like to pull that.
Is that it for your comments?
That's it.
Legal?
No comments, Mr. President.
Moving on to informational agenda. Governance, internal auditing, general matters.
Good afternoon, directors. I'm Tom Kaiser, Chief Internal Auditor. I have a few items here I'd like to talk about. One is that on our action agenda, we have our report on the CSP audit, which Director Hanks has been asking about. That will be up soon. And on the non-competitive awards, we have our letters ready to mail out to the auditees, and we're moving forward on that. That's really all I have to say. You have any questions? All right, thank you.
Moving on to general matters, water.
No items.
No items.
I think Mr. Abadi had some comments.
How do you go ahead.
Go. Well, you know what, David, we'll let Director Body speak on this first, and then if you have any questions.
However you wish. That'd be fine, Mr. Abadi.
As I said, I spoke with Commissioner Connor and available opportunities, and knowing the ball's been in our court all along, I'm asking the board to support me on this. Nothing will happen to stem the loss of life in the All-American Canal until somebody does something about it. There's a time for studying and the problem, and the time when further study actually becomes its own problem. And I think we have reached that point where when the All-American is concerned. What's been missing is a plan of action, which is why I'm proposing to this board, the IID management, that we get down to business at hand, which is saving lives of our own employees, all those who work and patrol the canal on both sides of the border, or anyone who might come in accidental contact with its currents. I'm requesting the board support for a two-pronged approach for installations on buoy lines in a lined and unlined section of the canal. For the unlined portion, these buoys should be placed straight across at canal intervals of 1 mile. For the line segment, I believe the buoys should be placed straight across the same way every half mile. Based on discussion I had last week with the Bureau of Reclamation's Mike Connor and members of the California Congressional Delegation, there are certain funding opportunities available to the district that haven't been explored, much less pursued. For this reason, I'm asking the General Manager and the Government Affairs staff to investigate and secure and expedite the basis of these funding sources through the Bureau and our elected officials. As for the line portion of the canal, since IID derived neither water nor revenue from the lining project, I think it's only right that San Diego County Water Authority step up and be responsible agency and assume 100% of the cost to install these buoys, and to do so without any further delay. The only timetable that makes sense for these safety measures is right now, which is why I'm requesting that the plan of action be developed and this board can act on and the district can complete by the end of this summer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Abadi, and we will...
I'm asking the board for direction on this.
Oh, I thought they already agreed on it. But,
did they all agree?
I'm fine.
I'm agree. I'm on board with it.
Okay. I'm currently in talks with San Diego right now. This is one of the subjects, the last point you brought up. And of course, we're talking at the regional director level. You were talking to Mr. Connors. So, and they all seem to be they're all very positive. They're about coming up with a solution. So we will be bringing that back to you.
All right, thank you.
At least within that time frame that you.
Well, my understanding when the meeting I met, which is referred to my letters, what was told to me in Washington, this would be expedited and probably completed by summer. So that's the goal, to have it
Exactly.
completed and to pursue this at all costs. So it does. That's the ending date.
Understand.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up on Director Abadi's last comment. Is we think we really do need to expedite the situation. General Manager Brady.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Moving on to energy.
Tony?
Kofi
and I had a comment here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I handed these out earlier. You guys all have one of these things if you want them. 6 pages. Let me go through my proposal. It's pretty similar to Mike's. It's a little bit more aggressive because I want to save more people, basically, faster. First page, let's stop the drownings in the All-American Canal. Picture of the solutions. This was done about 3 years ago. Hasn't changed any. Fence, buoys, climb outs. Not complicated. It's done every other canal in the country except this canal. Nothing complicated. It's not rocket science. Mission statement. The All-American Canal shall not be used as a lethal deterrent of any persons regardless of race, creed, or nationality. And I don't believe in these goop-de-goop mission statements ordinarily, but you guys need one. You actually need a frickin' mission statement, okay? Our intent is to end the career of the most prolific serial killer in California history. Mission statement for you dudes. We're dedicating this to Alejandra. Next couple days, you'll see her on TV a lot because she's going to be on three Hispanic channels plus NBC, and you saw her in 60 Minutes, okay? This is the little girl that drowned, one of the 550 victims of this All-American Canal, and you're going to see her shortly, a lot of her. So you made this little girl famous, okay? I'm sure she'd rather be alive today, but you did make her famous. She drowned saving her older sister's life, who was 12 years old. She was 10 at the time. Page 4. Disband the coordinating committee. These guys are a frickin', pardon my French, I don't usually cuss. Disband the coordinating committee. This angle line system they've come up with is totally diabolical. You couldn't have conceived a better way to kill people than this because you kill them going north, you kill them going south. You engineers are pathetic. Straight across buoys work. They have been for 30 years. They put them on drops 1, 2, 3, and 4 because people were drowning in those drops. You know that. They do them in the Edmund G. Brown and under every overpass, and they fence them out. Put in simple concrete piers. I will personally install them for free if necessary. I'll do them within a month. Get the hardware, well, hang it. It's a piece of cake. It took me 7 minutes to hang the stuff for 60 minutes. 7 minutes. 2 guys in a wetsuit. Piece of cake. So these studies are ludicrous. You know, you don't need to find new ways to kill people. We need the old ways to save them. 3-phase solution. Phase 1, 2 buoy lines per mile for both line and unlined sections. 164 lines, end of July, $3,000 per line. That's with fat, okay? It's not $8,400 like your guy told me. Someone's making some cash off that, I assure you. They're actually $2,000. I know because I bought them. $3,000 per line, $500,000 phase 1. You're done in phase 1 in July, okay? Basically, you've substantially saved the canal with phase 1. Phase 2, 8 more lines per mile for both portions. 656 additional lines. That equals $2 million. $2 million. Still, less than you spent saving the fish. Less than you spent on the fish. Phase 3, check this out. End of November, what you would do when you ever build things, maybe you guys know this or not, you see what the results were. If you need more fencing in certain areas or more buoys, you install them in certain areas. Phase 3 is you may add some more buoys and fences as needed. November, you're done. 3 phases, at the max, $4.5 million, probably $3 million. You saved a lot of lives, game over. You can guys go back to doing your day jobs and actually making money and doing renewable energy and things that are fun. And I'll stop being mean to you, okay? Thanks.
Thank you, Oscar. David?
Yes, I have a question for the general manager, and that is, where is or Mr. Hanks, whichever one wants to answer it. At the last meeting, Mr. Hanks submitted to staff. I am calling for staff to bring a resolution to the next meeting identifying a plan of action as to the proposed safety measures, complete with the financing and timelines necessary to bring this issue to closure in a timely manner.
We are working on that. Mr. Hanks did make that request. When a board member makes that request, staff has to oftentimes do a lot of work. In this case, we weren't complete with that. It was not timely to bring it back, and that is the general manager's decision. If I'm not going to bring back a completed staff work, we bring it back at the next board meeting.
What is your status on it, on that report? How much time has been spent by staff on this?
Well, you see, the board has given me direction on developing a comprehensive plan, action plan, and we're going to be working on that.
You haven't answered the question. How much time has been spent by staff?
Sir, when we're ready to bring it back.
As a member of the public, I'm entitled to ask the question and expect a reasonable, accurate answer.
And the answer to the question is that Mr. Abadi and the rest of the board agreeing asked for an action plan that would include developing a solution by the end of summer. So
that is not correct. Mr. Abadi called for it to be complete, not the action plan, but for the installation to be complete. And it cannot be even voted on unless you agree to place something on the agenda. And the next question is, are you going to sit here and tell me that you are going to violate your policy and not allow the items that I've requested to be on the agenda at the next meeting? Again, are you telling? I want an answer.
Are you done?
Not.
I do not violate. Neither does Mr. Garber or myself violate any of our policies. What you read, you forgot to mention a few other sentences that give us the latitude to put together on a practical basis agenda items to come before the board. So.
It doesn't say anywhere in there that you have that latitude. It says that a member of the general public may call for something to be placed on the agenda, and if it,
Mr. Shuttle, it doesn't suggest that a week before you can call and place an item on the agenda the following week. There's a timing issue.
It absolutely says that 1 week before you may place an item on the agenda. It says that. Just read it. You read it to me.
Read your own bylaws.
The issue is.
And plus the Brown Act, I can apply for an injunction to get it on the agenda. Do you want me to do that?
Go ahead.
I'm not particularly.
I mean, is that what you're asking me to do?
I don't think the issue is whether the item will be placed on the agenda. I think the concern from our end was when to place it on the agenda, whether we had all the information in place to put it on the agenda, and it was a question of
Where are you
timing.
collecting the information? I want a report. I don't have any report. No logic, no answer to mine.
David, I know for there was we had last time was silent means consent. I know that one of the information that Dr. Brady was waiting for was a letter from the federal government that we sent off a week before, and then Director Abadi is coming from Washington, D.C., and today he's presenting the information, and I think it's constructive to be able to formulate a resolution that will bring all the stakeholders, as Director Abadi has presented, that San Diego pay for the line portion. I think this is important to put into the resolution instead of bringing a resolution before the board without this other information. So I'm hoping that the resolution that will come in the future, in the near future, the resolution that will come in the near future will entail all these details. So I'll transfer, unless you have a different question, I'll go to Oscar.
Yes, I do have a different question, and that has to do with the proposal that I submitted, which was timely. There was no reason for further study on it, and that is direction to the coordinating committee of the All-American Canal regarding their testing program. That's not on the agenda, but if you broadly interpret the water, this is a water matter. I don't understand why at least you couldn't hear it for information purposes, or that it's be considered as an informational item. And that is that a monitoring program dated 11/15/09, which I'm not sure you ever voted on. You could tell me if you ever voted on whether you approved that testing program. Are you aware? I didn't find anything in the minutes that you ever approved the testing program for the All-American line section of the canal. Is that correct? You did not approve that?
I think we were informed that it was moving forward.
Right.
But you never approved that program. Well, I'm suggesting one of two things. Either you dismantle the coordinating committee, which it's my understanding the full purpose and sole purpose of that coordinating committee was to construct the canal. The safety measures were given to them because the canal was still under construction. That was in August 2008. It's approaching August 2010. They've fully completed the canal. My suggestion is that you eliminate that coordinating committee, because all they're doing, as Dr. Hunter said, is absolutely nonsense in terms of their testing program. And I'd like to go through the testing program, and I hope you'll bear with me. One is, John already mentioned the difficulty of the 31 to 37 degree angle. It's on the wrong side of the canal. As you know, what's happening is that those buoy lines that are being tested, and they're in there right now, there's 4 buoy lines in existence today that are just waiting for an accident to occur. They're angled in the wrong direction so that somebody who's trying to go from the south to the north will in fact be forced to swim partially upstream, and when they get to the other side, there's no method of them getting out of the canal. There's no ladder, there's not even a rope. There can't be any doubt in anybody's mind that a migrant determined to get across to the north side may very well attempt using the buoy line and drown in the process, solely because the buoy line installation made it extremely difficult for them to cross. And if such a drowning occurred and could be documented, the plaintiff might successfully claim that the state law exempts both the San Diego County Water Authority and IID from liability relating to a dangerous condition would no longer apply. And that's very important, that you right now have an exemption. Nobody can sue you unless they're under the age of 12 who fall in the canal, or if they didn't get there illegally. That means one of your employees, a board member, falls in the canal. They can find you liable, and you can be subject to a multi-million-dollar suit. And it's just happenstance that the Alejandro's family wasn't aware that they had a right to sue you, and you could have been faced with a multi-million-dollar suit had that accident occurred in the last 6 months. There's a very short time fuse on the statute of limitation regarding bringing claim against an entity under the Act. So right now, what you have done or authorized in a section of your canal is a condition that increases your liability extraordinarily. And my recommendation is very strongly is that you eliminate that liability by whatever means to get that coordinating committee to take down those lines or move them so they're straight across the 4 that are there now. There was no mention in the testing results as far as the role of hypothermia. There was no mention of the effect of the angled lines on an employee of the IID or Border Patrol who might slip and fall in the AC on the wrong side of the canal. There's no mention of throw ring stations, which was recommended. There was no mention of making the buoy system easier to traverse by reducing the size of the buoys. These are big 16-inch buoys that takes as the Border Patrol agent testified, it takes a lot of body strength to get across them. They certainly could be smaller buoys closer together. White buoys that can be more recognized at nighttime, or at least partially white. Maybe a signing even on the buoys that to get on the downhill side to make it easier. Take measurements to increase the tautness. And of course, there was nothing in the testing program that addressed the issue of a 12-month testing period for 4 buoy lines for their effectiveness. I mean, no effectiveness can be determined with 4 buoy lines, 1 for every 5 or 6 miles. That is for sure. And certainly nothing about the deaths. My recommendation is that you dissolve the coordinating committee, or at the very minimum, recommend to the coordinating committee to take specific actions regarding these deficiencies, to place the buoy line straight across, to terminate each buoy line at a ladder on the north side, to assist with self-extrication, to put ropes at least on the other end, if not ladders, reduce the floats to a minimum size to allow accommodation of somebody getting across the lines, specify white buoys, if feasible, depending on the float size, install slining on them, Consider a buoy line attached analogous to a floating dock where the water does vary. In some sections of the canal, the water does vary in depth. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 feet, but if you look at some pictures from the testing, you'll see that the IID representative, I'm not sure if they were directly responsible, but the buoy line that was shown in the photographs showing the buoy lines out of the water for the last 20 feet on either side of the buoy line. How the heck anybody going across that buoy line could ever get across, Lord only knows. Whoever thought of that. And eliminate the proposed 12-month testing period and increase the number of buoy lines in the testing program to a minimum of 2 per mile. Again, my observation is that the testing program is an ill-conceived solution to an exempt, dangerous condition that could result in that exemption being breached. It could result in additional deaths of illegal immigrants. It could result in the drowning of persons who had not entered the canal unlawfully, namely a Border Patrol officer, an IID employee or subcontractor, or a person under the age of 12 who is not accompanied by an adult. In the latter case, San Diego County Water Authority and IID would not enjoy the canal exemption from a dangerous condition of public property. If the board fails to take positive action to correct the fatal flaws that I've outlined, the mere existence of this document may prove detrimental to the IID and the San Diego Water Authority in future lawsuits that attempt to breach the canal exemption.
Thank you, David. Dr. Brady,
Yes.
Do you think you can bring next meeting in June an update on a more detailed outline on why on the testing of the buoys they are designed the way they are designed right now? We can hear.
I know the answer.
So,
Let me save you guys 2 weeks.
well, I mean,
They
so.
put them at an angle, so if you try to cross from Mexico, you would drown. Okay, it's real simple. I kid you not.
I don't think it's.
Simple stuff, guys. 37 degrees. Don't wait 2 weeks.
Anthony, take control.
So if you
I can do that.
bring the
Dr. Brady?
a detailed outline.
The next board meeting is in La Quinta. This would be a water issue.
Well, in the end of
exception
June
of that
here.
Yes.
So that way, when they do go in, we don't cause drownings. Oscar. I'm sorry. When the full scale. Oscar.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the ping pong game of procedural thing of the agenda, or whether it is, or the merits, or what these gentlemen just discussed, although it sounds interesting and highly critical. I'm in favor of the significance of what Mr. Hunter said about the safety program. That lady, especially the young girl that died, why do we need to save them? We need to save them because just before our eyes at the beginning, at the inception of the meeting, look at all the young talent that's going to college, legally or illegally, you know. And many of them, you know, don't stop me, please.
Well, I just want to remind you, Oscar, that there's 3 or 4 buoys in the canal right now. They're being tested, so everybody's moving forward.
They're lethal. They're lethal. The ones that have now are lethal. You don't understand.
You don't understand.
Don't take
them out. Take them down.
But anyway, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, they just don't want to take any action.
I'll show you the blackboard if you want to see why they're lethal. They are totally lethal. Only an idiot put them together.
I have an advice. If they are testing all of you don't go in that line of buoys and test it for us and see if they are effective. What do you think?
Okay, I've already asked our Dr. Brady to bring a detailed reasoning as why they are the way they are designed.
But why all this testing and testing? It's going to be 2020 and you still testing and people still drowning. You don't understand that.
Brady knows why they put them there. So you can cross it unless
Bruce
you got
Kuhn?
drowned. Go start, Bruce. Go ahead.
Feel like a party pooper, and we'll break up a party here. I want to shift gears here. This is the reason I came. Director Abadi touched on it. I've been going down there for over 35 years in the Mexican Valley. I had a home down there for almost that long. So that said, when we started taking stuff down there after the earthquake, myself and those of us who have places down there, we realize the extent of the damage. Of course, me coming from an agricultural background, the canal system, the conveyance system for getting that water down there, it's tore up, guys. Bad. I mean, it's not a little bit tore up. I'm talking 6-foot bottom concrete ditch, 6-foot bottom, where the bottom opened up and the fissure opened and the bottom of the ditch fell in it. It's vertical in a big fissure, sometimes 200 yards long. Now, they may be able to make emergency repairs and go on those sections, maybe make them dirt. Their best estimate, at least when I talked to them, they thought they might get water back to those areas in 6 months. I do have, well, I've become acquainted with many of the farmers in the southern end of the valley, and I don't know too many people that work harder than those guys do. I mean, they've got, some of them have 40 hectares, some of them have 100 hectares, and all in between. But man, they work like rented mules on their property. They don't run around looking through their windshield and have growers and irrigation foremen and tractor foremen. These guys work their asses off. Their wheat came up. It was stressed out. It's not going to be worth the crap. The cotton came up and it died. They're not going to be able to be, I doubt they'll be able to get any produce in at all, at least in the south end. And then, all that aside, even if the conveyance system were fixed, that liquefaction, the phenomenon where the water comes out of the ground and it brings this real pretty white sand, and there are fields down there, looks like African ants over an entire 40, 60 acres. Even if the conveyance system is fixed, there are fields down there you couldn't water if you dropped it out of an airplane. It's tore up. There are fields that have settled on halves and quarters. Anyway, the need is dire. That said, Director Abadi and I met about a month ago, and I brought it to his attention. There is a solution. He's on to it. He did breach it in Washington, D.C. I think it was received, I believe you had a good reception from our conversations. Anyway, I'm going to ask this board, and this is not a welfare case. They would be able to sell their water to pay for this, but I want IID to be the lead. That said, it can be done. I'm reasonably sure it can legally be done. And if it isn't done, then those responsible for not doing it, for whatever reason, it would, in my opinion, probably be greed, or it would be personalities. But if this is not done, those person or persons responsible for not letting it be done, and I'm not a deeply religious man, but they should be brought before God and turned into salt, because we have an opportunity to avert an economic disaster in the Mexicali Valley. And again, it goes back to what I said. May not be popular, but it's the right thing to do because it can be done and it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will point out that
Mr. Kuhn, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The water you're talking about is currently just running into the City of Cortez?
Will be. Yes, sir.
I know there were discussions going on among the Colorado River users about this same subject, and I'll find out. And if Mr. King was here, I think he'd share some of that. But I'll report back to the board on that. But it is an issue that's being openly discussed.
And in all due respect, I believe that to be true. It's I can't be the only one that thinks in these areas or circles, but I want us to be the lead. That's why I brought it to Mr. Abadi's attention, and I think it can be, and I believe because they're our neighbors. They're not Nevada's neighbors. They're not Met's neighbors. They're our neighbors, and we need to do this. After the drubbing we got on 60 Minutes, and not pointing any fingers, Stella, I understand what they do. They cut and paste. But after the drubbing that we got, I can't imagine letting an opportunity like this slip between our fingers, because this is the golden opportunity to show the world that we as an entity do care. And it can be done, and it should be done. And if not, I reiterate, those responsible for not should be turned to salt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce, I think that there was some discussions going on with Mexico wanted to store some of the water behind Hoover. It wasn't being used, but there's issues dealing with the Colorado River. And Mr. Garber, as he said, he would check into it. And but I know that there are issues. I've heard the talk about it, the Colorado River Board, but I think that should be looked at as to who would buy the water from Mexico. Are you talking about like MWD or somebody on the river purchasing the water from that's going into the Sea of Cortez and not being used?
Absolutely. And I'm not opposed to investigating whether it can be stored by someone over here who buys it. You know, if the law will allow it, do it. If it won't, then do something else.
There's been negotiations going on well before the earthquake about Mexico doing some storage behind the dams, and like I said, I think there's certain issues.
I can understand that, Director Menville, but in this particular case, they wanted to store it for convenience. Man, they need the money to fix that infrastructure down there now. This is not an act of convenience. This is an act of necessity. Their conveyance system is tore up. Their fields are tore up. They don't need to store water for convenience. They need money, and they need money to fix what they've got. And there are some poor dirt farmers down there that are going to get their asses kicked if they don't get help.
When you say that if this isn't taken action on, and somebody doesn't do something about it, then they would be the people that would be at fault. Who are you speaking about when you say that?
Director Menville, if this, and God forbid, but if this was a dictatorial government, it could be done. I mean, snap of a finger, it could be done. I'm not suggesting that I want something like that, but I'm just telling you it could be done. Now, that said, there's nothing that I have asked be done here that can't be done. We just got to get it done. You find the people. You get to the right people. If I was on that board, I'd already be making the phone calls. I'm not. So, as an entity, get out in front of it, find out what we can do, but let it be us. Don't let it be somebody else. They're our neighbors. It's the right thing to do.
All right. The other question I wanted to ask you, you said in 2000 there was $200,000 available for putting buoys in the All-American Canal. Is that correct?
It was 2000, 2002. I don't know exactly what year.
$2,000 vote for the board that day voted 4-1 to support the buoys. I got a call from Bruce and Andy Horn a month later. You guys said, John, we're under immense pressure. We're going to lose our constituency unless we change our votes. They gave me. They studied it for 5 months. Gave me 1 day to respond. Totally specious report by Gunny Buffington. Stephen knows about, saw the report. Totally lied, okay? 1 day to respond. Change your vote, Bruce. 100 more dead people. So basically, there's plenty of guilt to go around. I'll take some blame myself, because I haven't been mean that for you guys.
I'm talking about this Cherry from the Bureau.
He gave you the money. The money was in your account. $92,000. You spent $40,000 on Buffington. You blew the remaining $52,000. I have no idea how. It's gone. That's what happened.
There was
I
no.
went back to the desert for 7 years after that, because there was no chance until a body came along, a strong guy finally, to fight this stupid fight with you guys. And now I think you should take heed. By the way, I don't think you're going to become pillars of salt. That's only a small shot. There's a small chance to become salt. But anyways, I'll show you when Bruce is finished how drag works, okay?
Well, the other question I want to ask, in 2001, I know this board voted 4-1 not to put buoys in because of the liability situation that was involved.
That was because of an erroneous report that you relied on and you should not have relied on. And this general manager.
Because you made the motion.
Report what I reported, the light of day, because that was supposed to be on the agenda today to review how absolutely ridiculous that report was in light of facts. And he has taken it upon himself to not allow something to be on the agenda that his policy says should be on the policy.
Dr. Brady, can you also
anyway.
bring that 92,000, 20,000 to the next meeting?
Sure.
And Dr. Hunter, I know that you want to give that presentation. I would allow it, or if you'd like to wait for 2 more weeks where we have the other report. Go ahead.
Okay, well, listen, thank you, gentlemen, and Godspeed.
Okay, this is going to save you guys weeks of screwing around with your bureaucrats, okay? Pardon my French. This is the All-American Canal. But the banks are blue here, right? The water's going this way. What your coordinating committee did was they cleverly angled it such that the buoys go at a 37-degree angle. What you asked, why is that? You do the drag calculation. This is the drag calculation for a fluid going through water, okay? Besides blowing things up for a living, I make a living also doing fluid dynamics. This is simple. Basically, the drag on any object in fluid goes like the square of the speed, the cross-sectional area, the cosine of the angle. This is the angle right here, right? So it's basically, as the angle gets lower and lower, the drag force that takes you to the side goes to 0. Okay? It goes to 0. This angle goes to 90 degrees, goes from 0 here. If these were right across like this is how it should be. Okay? This is a classic buoy system. This is what you want. Yes. This was a killer. No. Because what happens is you can imagine, you guys have all tried to swim upstream, haven't you? That's all this is. If this says you cannot swim upstream. So someone on your coordinating committee with a perverse sense of what's right says, we're going to drown these people, we're going to show them, we're going to trick hunter, we're going to put some buoys in, but it's actually going to cause people to either drown or go back home with their tail between their legs because we're so tough. Probably some little wimp did that, okay? I'm telling you, put the buoy straight across. This term goes to, the smallest it goes to 0, okay? Because cosine of 90 degrees is 0. You can cross then. Now, one more thing. I have crossed your canal repeatedly, locked me up, at least 20 times. I swam across about four or five times in 2000 when Bruce was running the place. I swam across it, of course, in 60 minutes, at least 6, 7 times. It's a piece of cake as long as your buoys go straight across. Part 2, Border Patrol is on this side. I happen to like BP. They saved me a couple times in the desert about 2 years ago. Guy falls in here, just like Officer Goldstein did on the Coachella. He falls in here rescuing his dog. You know what happens to him? He cannot get out because he can't go against the stream either. So he has to go down 300 feet, not just 250. He's got to go 300 feet plus to get across. Hyperthermia kicks in. Officer Goldstein drowns here as well. So you've got a lose-lose situation in your hands. My 2 minutes are up.
Thank you. And then next week, or 2 weeks from now, Dr. Brady, you will present us with the committee's recommendation. And we will move forward with Energy General Matters.
He's got a question.
Oh, Director Hanks has another question.
Which committee?
What committee?
Dr. Brady.
This was, we're
people
going to
responsible?
present the information that the testing showed. I mean, basically, it'll be the other side of
The other side
what,
of what?
of what Dr. Hunter just talked about. We'll bring that back.
You mean you're not going to make any
I didn't-
recommendations for change? Is that what you're saying?
Well, sir,
I've asked
we have
John. I've asked for the reasoning for the other recommendation.
Are you going to have it as an action item so that we can vote? So that
No, we're gonna have it as what Dr. Hunter showed us. That's what we're gonna have in 2 weeks, and that's. What's your
For
question?
information instead of voting. There needs to be a vote to be taken to direct the coordinating committee to take a particular action. So it needs to be an action item.
No, I think the board needs to listen and then reflect on it for about a week and then come back.
For 2 more weeks to. You could have reflected on it this week.
Reflect
but
on
you
the
didn't have it.
recommendation. on both
You already have
recommendations.
their recommendations.
Because I know
It's
for a
in writing.
fact
It's in
it is
writing.
nobody's intention to have anyone drown. So I'll leave it at that.
The report
Director,
already exists.
I'm sorry, John.
The report that you
you've
were
had
asking
more than
for
5
already
minutes.
exists.
Director Hanks.
Yeah, I had a question on the water issue. And it probably involves Greg too. In December 2009, we passed a water bond, that $310 million water bond, and it was dependent upon the iBank being in existence or the guaranteed loan, and that's no longer taking place. What is the situation with that bond? Do we need to go back and take action to get rid of it, or because technically it's still on the books?
Well, we haven't issued the bonds. We got authorization from the board to move forward. At that time, it was written in such a way that we thought we understood what the iBank guarantee was, but after discussions with the iBank, it was clear that what we thought the guarantee was and what they thought the guarantee was completely different. And since that time, we're currently trying to get legislation passed through the state legislature to close out a couple of the open items, which were really, one was a dispute with the iBank as to when the guarantee kicked in, and the other one was the establishment of the reserve account, which has to be done by legislation before there can be a guarantee. So my current plan is hopefully that will get passed through the legislature, and at the same time work with the iBank to get the guarantee in place that we think the district agreed to back in 2003, and then at that point make a decision as to what we do. But there will not be any bonds issued until we bring everything back to the board and they vote on it.
Right, and I think we've talked about this off and on a little bit, but to be very clear, Greg and I, at a staff level, have decided since that time that you gave us authorization to put the whole thing on hold. A lot of things have changed. We're going to be coming back to you with a different phased approach to system improvements, which we think will be much more economical, I think, and we will bring that all back to you.
But it was my understanding that bond was, part of the resolution, it was dependent upon the iBank being a guaranteed loan.
That and some other things. In other words, what you did was you took action, but the action was conditioned on certain events, and only if those events happened in the affirmative would we go ahead and obtain or sell the bonds. Those items didn't take place. Maybe what we need to do is pull the action, because I've forgotten the specific language. Yeah. But we never move forward. And if you want to clean that up, we can
to clean it up.
Yeah,
we
can
pulled, or?
Exactly. We can pull it back, and I don't know that further action is necessary, but clarification makes complete sense to me. So we'll pull that.
That okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving on to Energy General Matters.
Dr. Koch.
Thank you, board members. Dave Koch, Energy Manager. There's three things that I'd like to discuss. The first, over the weekend, we lost part of the S line. It blew down in the heavy winds along Dogwood. The pole just snapped. This again is indicative of some of the problems that we're trying to take care of with the S line. Secondly, San Juan. The participants of the San Juan generating station, of which we receive approximately 100 megawatts, have been sued by the Sierra Club. This is another suit dealing with emissions from the facility or the environmental conditions of the facility. The last suit resulted in the owner spending approximately $350 million putting on fly ash bags on all the units there. I believe there's 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're an owner in 100 megawatts in Unit 3. The Sierra Club has now come back and sued over the disposition of fly ash. They want us to take the ash and put it back into the ground where we've removed the coal. The third is for Director Abadi. You requested a little bit earlier today that we talk about energy, renewable energy alternatives with Mexico. And this ties into the IV sub-work that we're talking about. UI and Director Mendoza on June 9th may request, particularly since I'm not here next week, that we meet discuss that on our June 9th meeting and then bring it back to the board the following week.
And between now and June 8th, then you'll be in touch with Washington and this lady from the American Affairs, that this is an initiative by this administration just recently. There's funds available to facilitate these things. My understanding is what they do is they have grants and stuff and money to build a line on the U.S. side up to the border, and CFE pays for theirs coming to the other side. That's the way it was explained to me by Sadine Kelly and Debbie Swanstrom.
I saw an email today that just said there was a cross-border renewable energy initiative. I don't know anything more about it than that. So I will get with you either after, if that's convenient with you.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm asking, is to research that and make that also part of your report in 2 weeks.
Could it be the week after we discuss? So it'd be June 16th? 15th. You and I and Director Mendoza are meeting on the 9th. I can discuss what I found at that point with you and then bring it back to the full board the following week.
All right.
Is that? Thank you.
The ISO is wanting about energy loss. They're requesting to have something in front of in Sacramento about energy loss sharing. What's going on with that? And where are we opposed? Do we have anything on
we
record?
are opposed.
Who's our rep, and what do we have that we're saying?
Well, we're fighting a number of initiatives at the ISO through FERC. The ISO is attempting to expand many of its operating procedures by fiat or by their tariff to cover entities like ourselves that are interconnected with them. Therefore, we have to take the position at FERC that we're opposed to their position. We do not like the societal cost of allowing the ISO to string their lines into our service balancing authority and then turn around and socialize the cost of building that on our wheeling cost, even though we receive no direct benefit. We don't like their attempt to push inadvertent flows and to gather information in real time on our generation with our control area. So we fight a number of different battles with the ISO consistently at FERC. This is just one of many.
Okay, because this would require us to carry more than just a 15% reserve if this was to go through. So my question is how is our support, and I understand what FERC wants, whether it's dynamic scheduling, dynamic balancing, how do we know we're not shooting ourselves in the foot in this? No one's trying to balance this grid.
Dynamic scheduling we agree with. That we are actually looking at our OAT tariff, which is coming back to the board, I believe, on I have a date here. It looks at the end of June, where we'll include extraction of service rates from the tariff, addition of operational reserve requirements due to WEC proposal, and dynamic scheduling and the increase in cost. That we cannot afford to balance all the ISO geothermal and potential solar and biomass development in the valley ourselves. So by requiring each of these generators to be dynamically scheduled through the ISO or whichever control area they're being sold into reduces our obligations. Okay, so we were to buy something from within San Diego's service territory, we would have to dynamically schedule that, which in effect means we would hold reserves on a resource located out of our control area. At the same time, resources located within our reserve, within our balancing authority, the reserves would be held by the receiving balancing authority. So we actually like the dynamic scheduling aspect. And that's good for us.
Yeah, now this doesn't just apply then to jointly owned lines. It's about intersecting balance in the
Well,
control.
there's actually three issues going on here. One, just balancing in order to avoid inadvertent flows. In other words, we schedule power from here to San Diego, but it ends up in Nevada. To avoid that, the ISO wants real-time information on all generation that is interconnected with them, which includes us. We do not see a reason to give them access to our generation. Right? That's the first issue. The second issue is they actually want to increase reserves and decide what can be accounted for on a reserve sharing basis versus not. We're a member of something called the Southwest Reserve Sharing Group, which includes ourselves, Salt River, Tucson, PNM, and several other entities going east. We do not want to be part of the Cal ISO reserve sharing. We're reserve obligation. Different issues. I would be more than happy to go over each one with you and show you why we like some and dislike others.
Does SCAPA have a position on this?
Most of the SCAPA members, with the exception of us, are within the ISO, except for LADWP. We generally will agree with LA, generally, on issues related to the ISO. On issues related to anything else, we may not, but at least with regard to the ISO, the two of us and SMUD tend to be in agreement as we all operate our own balancing authority.
So then SCAPA as an organization is staying out of it?
I have not heard any of the issues. I attend the SCAPA executive meetings. None of them have come up in the last 6 months since I've been going.
Can you find that out too, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to Human Resources.
Mr. Devoy.
Good afternoon. Dan Devoy, Manager of Human Resources and Loss Control. This is an RFP or an award for the Industrial Shoe Company to provide the safety shoes that are called for by our agreements with our bargaining units. And it's for a 2-year agreement.
Any questions? from the
Any
board?
questions?
And this, we'll bring this back on the 8th.
How many responded to the RFP?
I think there were three.
Were there
Three
any
companies.
local people? Are these local?
No, I don't know. I don't know exactly who the other two were that didn't win.
And this was the best one?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll have that information on the 8th before you vote.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oiga, ¿de dónde es usted?
Yo soy nacida en Jalisco.
Qué bonitas las mujeres de
Oh, muchas gracias. Y me crié aquí en México.
¿Qué colonia? Yo soy de la Aprobada.
De veras, yo tengo familia en la Sagrada.
Ahí por la Río, Culiacán y Abasolo.
Mi hermano vive, ay Dios, ¿cómo se llama esa? Tengo mi hermano.
Yo creo que
No, es mi marido.
a una mujer muy bonita. No le diga porque me va a pegar.
No.
¡Ey, Mendio!
Le voy a decir que lo conocí ayudándole a poner agua en el desierto como voluntaria. Así fue como lo conocí. Y nos casamos en el 2004. Apenas tenemos 6 años de casados.
Qué bien, la felicito.
Pero estamos en lo mismo, con algo para seguir la pasión.
Dice él que usted ha sido la mejor mujer que ha tenido. Pues ¿cuántas ha tenido?
Todos antes que yo. Soy la número 3 de la tercera bala vencida.
Seguro que sí. No, y buena suerte.
Y dice que las mexicanas y las tejanas son las mejores mujeres. Porque su mamá era tejana y yo soy mexicana. Pero ¿sabe?
I called your number twice. You don't answer, man. There's no recording.
No, I finally got Mire.
Pero con permiso.
Sí. No, I know he does.
No, I returned a phone call.
I finally got my thing hooked on yesterday. No, man, I'm your man.
You left me a message and I.
You're big time, man. I want to be with big time.
No better than that. I returned the call. It rang and rang and
You
rang.
tell Rudy I'm not backing. I'm backing him. I'm backing Desert.
Then I called again and rang and rang. Nobody
Fucking
answered.
Rudy fucked up.
Who are you backing?
Desert.
You're going for Desert.
And I'm going for Hanks. And I'm going for Galindo. All the way. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Rudy's not going to make it. Sanchez, he's really... Nobody's... I mean, he's going to get votes from Calexico. But, you know, San's taking some, Rudy's taking some.
Well, Rudy and... You mean for Desert? Rudy.
Well, no, I'm sorry.
Sanchez
Galindo.
And Sanchez are running against each other.
And Galindo, Gus, the Carrillo boys, and the Robinson, Gonzalez's, and Acuñas, and whatever, Greens, Brown, they're all backing Galindo.
Yeah, that's fine.
Morris
He's
Rice.
from Plexico.
Yeah.
He's from Heber. What do you expect, man? He's not a bulldog.
No, she's not. No,
He's not.
Yeah,
Sanchez is not a bulldog.
Hey, you know, the other day I saw my brother's All-Star year there. Jesse graduated 63 and you graduated 62. You were a center field, hell of a center field. 23.
That's all right.
Oh, you guys won the championship. You fought it out with the Orioles always. But you were a hell of a center field.
I like baseball. It was
and I remember your dad. I still go by there and I remember your dad and Mr. Biopi on the close to the first base, or always together.
Alex Rivera too, man.
Oh, Alex was tough. The senior guy. Ooh, he had a good team, man. And you know, Louis Nogales, when Ram Samaja had him, Louis, Joe Alonso, Juarez was a pitcher, Panchiskis. I can name you the whole team. But anyway, I don't know.
We are moving toward the consent agenda. Oh, where's the board of directors?
Yeah, you need a quorum.
Yeah, I need a
Mr.
quorum.
President.
You made $10.
Yeah, they're coming back. Mr. President, you before you go on with the consent calendar, I would request we'd like to pull for future consideration item number 10.
Oh, good. I was going to pull that for discussion, so we'll pull it for...
Yeah, we have a couple more questions we'd like to answer for ourselves.
Yeah, I wasn't ready to vote on that as well. And also on number 5, board meetings of May 11th. I was not here, so I'm going to abstain from voting.
Abstain on that, okay. So we have, for your consideration, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and not 10.
I've got a couple of corrections on the minute.
Okay.
On page 14, on the statement on the All-American Canal, paragraph 2, the second to last words instead of trial should be final product.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and the third paragraph of the statement, second line, instead of begging, it should be requesting.
You got that? Okay.
All right, thank you. So we have to make a motion on the consent agenda.
Move for approval on 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
Please vote. Moving on to action agenda.
Wait a minute. I can't vote on number 5, I told you.
Oh.
Yeah, we have you, we'll have you abstain on 5.
But the motion was to.
You need to make the motion for approval on 6, 7, 8, 9.
We're going to make a motion to approve items 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And I'll vote on that.
Okay.
So that was the motion.
No,
you said
you included
5.
Included 5. You included 5.
5.
Second.
All right, second. Please
All right,
vote.
please vote. And now we'll
Now make a.
Who
voted no?
motion on number 5.
You know, wait.
Okay, we'll start all over.
6 through 9.
6 through 9. Can I have a motion?
6,
And a
7,
second.
8, 9. I move for approval.
We already have a motion and a second.
Good.
Just vote.
So vote.
So who's?
Okay.
All right, thank you. And
I did, okay.
and now we'll take action item or a vote on governance number 5 on the consent agenda. I have a motion.
Move for approval.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
With modifications, as Mr. Hanks
Second.
explained.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Moving on to the action agenda. Internal auditing customer service. Proposal audit report.
Betty has that.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. This audit was completed in response to the request made by the board, and it was outside our 2010 audit schedule. The board approved and the commencement of this audit on March 2nd, 2010. Our scope was limited to 2 items: a follow-up on the recommendation made on our CSP audit dated July 11, 2005, and the status in the SAP R3 system of the projects completed between 2005 and 2009. I have a list of the 5 recommendations that we made back in 2005, and the first 4 recommendations have been implemented, most of them through several reorganizations that took place at the Energy Department since then. And number 5, which was a recommendation to distribute some survey cards to the customers, and after reviewing and analyzing the collected data of the Energy Division Department to make changes to the process, if necessary, in a timely manner. To our knowledge, this issue was not addressed. However, since we issued our last report when it was a very heavy, very many CSPs, and we had problems with our process, the process was improved. Several process changes have taken place. The CSPs, the status of the CSPs between 2005 and 2009 is the second part of our audit. Between 2005 and 2007, there were, as we all know, a tremendous amount of CSPs opened. For example, in 2005, we had about over 2,200 CSPs and only 512 closed. That was one of the issues that we were having with the status of the CSPs. In 2006, of course, the trend continued. However, in 2007, an effort to close all completed projects began, and it's continuing to date. As of date of this report, most completed projects in the system have been closed, and consequently, a slowdown in the market reduced the number of CSPs open. In 2009, we had only 680 CSPs. But we had about 1,599 closed, which just further demonstrates the effort of the staff to close all CSPs in the system, all the closed projects that they were constructed to be shown in the SAP system also as closed. In 2005, a new process was introduced to manage the CSPs in the SAP system. This process used to track all CSPs. They track internal as well as external projects. Because of the configuration, it is difficult to generate a report which includes only the external or the internal CSPs for that matter. We believe that a similar report should be created in the system, in SAP system, to track all internal projects separately. The existing process then can be used to track all the external projects. This would be only one way of making it easier to see what we have, unless, of course, staff can come up with something that will make reporting and extracting data much easier.
Excuse me, do we have the technology to separate the internal projects from the external projects?
Yes.
Okay.
The report we discussed concerning the reporting in SAP is a specific example of the more complex issue actually on the SAP R3 reporting. In our previous audits, we described difficulties with reporting. It was common knowledge, we heard before and had seen presentations also about a system called Business Warehouse, or we refer to it most commonly as BW, that was to be configured after the 2009 SAP upgrade. and used to generate reports from the R3 system. As of date of this report, Business Warehouse has not been available for use. To this comment, Energy Department Management responded that Business Warehouse reporting software implementation is not under the control of the Energy Department, to which comment we fully agree with. It's a issue that should be addressed not by Energy Department or IT Department only for that matter. It should be a discussion and a decision made district-wide, depending on all the departments that they're using, water and energy mostly, to see if Business Warehouse is something that we can configure and when and how and what would be the timeline, what would be the cost to be implemented. These are all would make reporting, extracting reports from CSP, from the system, not just the CSPs, but on projects and a number of other issues would facilitate and make it easier. We have some observations that we also made. We numbered them 1 through 4. When the CSP is technically completed, commonly known as T-coded, and then reopened after 90 days, the clock for completing the project will not restart, meaning somebody opens a project and for 90 days nobody touches it for whatever reason. Might be maybe the customer didn't get back to us, maybe they didn't pay, whatever might be the reason. So 90 days up, and all of a sudden the 90 days, then they say, okay, well, what's going to happen with this project? Is for 90 days there, nothing happened to it. Let's say 97 days, they start working on it. Since it's not because the activity didn't take place, so nothing happened, the clock actually in the system should show that 90-day period start from day 1 again, which doesn't happen. These are some of the issues that during our fieldwork, talking with staff, that pulling out reports from SAP seen as a problem, so they would like to see this maybe addressed and see if it can be fixed. So the clock will restart after the 90 days and start counting 1 to 90 again, rather than going 91, 92, 93, which would show that now we are behind with the project. Also, when a CSP has no material charged to it, and we've seen some that had only time and maybe transportation, then it's a problem with managing the capitalization of these with the asset management. So it is difficult to determine how long a CSP has been opened without reopening each one individually. So not just we can see it, if you want to see when a CSP was open, you don't have a quick view. You have to go to each, click on each, and drill down and look at it, okay, when this one was open. This is also one of the issues that staff in the Energy Department and those who are dealing with CSPs would like to see a red flag mechanism maybe to be added to the existing process. And number 4 is the Energy Department decides to continue to pay for transformers installed for ratepayers, which is the common practice today, we believe, as a time maybe to reanalyze the applicable regulation fees. Such fees have not been updated for more than 5 years. And if it's feasible to come back with a recommendation to the board, if we should or maybe should not.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Dave, can you answer that question?
Maybe.
On these transformers?
Oh, Mario maybe, I think.
Well, Mario. Okay, Mario, you answered for me. What's the deal? So we're losing money on this thing? Traditionally, would you come to the mic, please?
Traditionally, the cost of the transformer on a new service has been covered inside the rate. That's pretty common among all of the utilities. And so we're just following a common practice. Now, in our conversations with the auditor, we are also in review. We've almost completed a review of all of our fees, and that one also always keeps pumping up. So we're bringing that one up to see as a utility if we want to apply that and charge that to the customer. But traditionally, in most utilities, it's part of the rate that's covered because it's an asset that keeps on going beyond, I mean, it's a long life item.
What would, give me an example of what would the extra cost be?
They typically, we use about 25% of the cost of a project. A CSP is typically associated with the transformer. A small job takes a small transformer. It'll do commercial, light commercial, may be a transformer that's 30,000. Large commercial may be a transformer that's 80,000. So it's typically between 25 around that area of the cost.
So if $30,000, you'd add 25% to it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically the $30,000 job would now increase about 25% the cost of the transformer. And so, as you're familiar, Director Menville, we have a tough time with what developers now, so you're basically passing that on to the developer. So it's something that we would like to revisit, and the audit, we agree with the auditors, but in the scope of all of the fees that we charge.
I have a question. Is this the same method that's used for the investor-owned utilities as well as the consumer-owned utilities?
It is my understanding that yes, that it's pretty common throughout the industry.
Okay.
Unless you're talking about a huge project where it's millions.
Okay.
And this
Let me
was
ask
part
another
of.
question.
Oh,
If, I know, Dr. Brady, when you've talked about some sort of outsourcing on some of these things for the IID's costs or sometimes are higher than other costs. So if the IID is going to jump the cost by another 25%, is there going to be some sort of outsourcing involved in here, or we just haven't got to that level?
It wouldn't matter.
Well, we really haven't gotten to that discussion level. I mean, thing is, it's a long-term decision, because right now, embedded in our electric rates is the return on, or the return of capital for these transformers, which is, hundreds of millions of dollars. And if we go to a different system, that has implication. Our electric rate will go down, but the upfront cost to a developer becomes significantly greater. So and the transformer is that particular item that is the most expensive part of a job. So that's why most utilities, so that you can spread it over a long period of time, and the transformers last 50 years, or we have transformers that last a long time.
100 years.
Yeah, 100 years. So that's why it's common practice to put it in the rate so that you don't kill a developer on his development costs, but you do recover it over a long period of time. As well, most of these transformers serve more than one customer, or can serve more than one customer. So having one customer pay for the whole thing. So as we sit here right now, I'm not inclined to change the way we do things, at least when it comes to transformers.
If I could add, the transformers tend to be unique to somewhat to the utilities. In other words, if we were now going to have charged the transformer and you were going to outsource that job, John, they would have to supply that transformer. And I would almost guarantee you that because of the alliances and the fact that we buy in bulk, you'd almost dictating to them where you're going to buy it, and they would not. We've run into this not on transformers but on switchgear when we went to the customer installed process that we now have. Just in buying some switchgear, which we allowed them to buy, their price was about 30% higher than what we would have installed it for.
That's fine. I know on some things we're behind and need to play catch-up.
Right.
But as long as it's reasonable catch-up, that's good for the customers and good for the district, then that's fine.
That's our goal.
We're in a gouging mode, and that doesn't go over too good out here in the public sector, so.
We haven't been there in a long while.
I know that.
And actually, referring back to the collection rate recovery, if you look on page 38, it's page 5 of our report, and page 38 on the agenda, we have a table titled Appendix B, and we have our actual collection rate. We did an analysis between 2005 and 2009, and as you can see, we went in 2005. We had a collection rate of 59%, and I would say we did a pretty good job of increasing that to up to 77% back in 2009. As to cover the number of CSPs opened and closed, on page 37 of your agenda packet, we have another table, Appendix A. As you can see, we have a number of the years and number of CSPs opened and closed. In 2005, as I mentioned, we had over 2,200 CSPs opened and only 500 closed. As in 2009, we had 680 opened and almost 1,600 closed. So 2007 and 2008, as well as 2009, were the years when the staff from the Energy Department really tried to clean up the system and all completed projects to close it into the system. And so by that, I think they did a good job. The catch-up and the projects, the status of the projects are closed. In 2010, we had about 252 CSPs closed, and most of those were older CSPs, not opened in 2010. As a conclusion to our report, we considered we have 4 recommendations to which management agreed, and it says consider using 2 different transaction codes to separately account for the internal and external CSPs, which we mentioned we have one that was implemented in 2005, a new process, and maybe that can be mirrored and use it separately so you have an easier time to run reports. Address the reporting and management of the CSP so that R3 reports list all materials actually used to complete the CSP to facilitate capitalization and correctly account for the cost. In some cases, I mentioned we had some projects, they had only maybe time or transportation, but no material, so we have some problems with that. Consider the feasibility of adding a red flag mechanism to the CSPs opened for a pre-established period of time without any subsequent activity, meaning the 90 days, I talked about it, we have it open for 90 days, there's no activity, so, or it's been open for 90 days, there's been some activity that is still open, have a red flag, see why the CSP is still open. We did some work, it's a construction issue, it's a problem with maybe material, whatever might be the problem. So just have a red flag rather than go into each CSPs and look the days that they were open. So it's, when you do reporting, it's really hard just taking on one look and see the status. It's just easier management. Would be a good management tool for the CSPs. And of course, as we talked about, consider analyzing and updating the regulation fees applicable to the CSPs and see if there's anything that maybe staff can come up. Like we said, our fees were updated more than 5 years ago. We made some general observations, and this
Excuse me,
yes,
before
ma'am.
you continue, it says plan follow-up as requested by the board. What time frame should we have this come back to us? 6 months? What do you recommend? Mario, do you recommend a time to?
Probably about I would say a year.
A year?
Yearly, to let the cycles go through.
Okay.
To close the
So
cycle.
1 year.
We work it.
Okay.
And also, as just a reminder, when we're having recommendations, and we said, as requested by the board, it's something standard that we have in all on our reports, but as you remember, beginning of each year, we have a follow-up of the recommendations made prior year. So actually, we are doing a follow-up on all the recommendations made during 1 year, and we're coming back and giving 2 or 3 presentations to the board
So
as of
none
the
of them fall through the
status.
cracks? Hopefully.
No.
Okay, thanks.
I got a question, baby. When we first started looking at these way back, the percent, you can see the improvement that's been made. What is a target that you're looking for on the collection rate?
That's really depend, and it's gonna be staff is gonna recommend, and the decision of the board is when it comes to basically to the transformers. How are we gonna do it? It's, I think, as Mario mentioned, usually a good rule of thumb is 25% of a project is the transformer. So we having a 77% collection rate now. Even though we have it broken down by years, since we had so many CSPs opened in prior years and then we closed them 2, 3, and even 4 years later, I think that this 77%, it would be a good target, or maybe higher, 80%, 85%, is just really depend what it is. But it would be hard if the district's going to decide and we're going to decide, and that's a good rule, to pay for the transformers. Probably the 77% collection rate, it's good.
Yeah, one of the things, you know, and I'm not interested in looking at that close, you know, because we did the time before, but on the variances from the different projects, you know, we averaged it out and it was pretty close, but there was on some there was a negative variance and some there was a positive variance. Are they getting closer there? If there's a positive variance, is that being returned, or?
I haven't seen what you're talking about. It's the way to look at it is that they have to take every single CSP one by one by one, and there are very many.
Yeah.
To see, I haven't read, as the ones that we looked, because we went in and tried to pick every 20, then every 50 maybe to look. We were looking to see if material was charged to the CSPs, so because we had problem with the asset management. So, and also to check the cost of the transformers. I haven't run close to across any CSPs that where we charged more and had to reimburse the customer, to be honest with you. I know most of the CSPs, especially from 2006, 2007 onward, we didn't had some of those problems. We did had some of those problems between 2000, the ones that we looked with our first report, 2000, 2005, and were not that hard to see. At this time, we didn't run across any of those.
As long as they're getting the projects closed, they should.
As long as the project
big issue, they should
that's
be
right.
Pretty much on top. Whenever you're 4 years out, then it's kind of tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
You notice all the details.
All right. Thank you, Betty.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I was just looking on Appendix A, page 37. Did we lose one?
Yeah, there's one. It's
Yes,
one
we
off.
did.
It died.
Is that what happened?
1599.
No, 252 versus 251.
We lost one on somehow we lost one.
We'll have to audit the auditors.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's.
we'll see if we can find it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
They need acknowledgement, or
Final
acknowledge
approval.
receipt.
Make a
Then make
motion to acknowledge the report.
First and a second, please vote. Number 12, extension of service agreement through December 31st, 2010 with
Kelly.
Spectrum Advertising for videotaping.
Kevin Kelly.
As President Sanchez, members of the board, we're seeking the board's approval today to extend the service agreement with Spectrum Advertising for videotaping of IID board meetings and Energy Consumers Advisory Committee meetings through the balance of 2010. We believe we can do this within the constraints of the existing service agreement in terms of dollars expended. And that'll give us time to conduct a full-blown RFP process in the fall.
All right.
Mr. President, I move to authorize Public Affairs section to extend the existing service agreement with Spectrum Advertising for videotaping services through December 31st, 2010, and initiate the RFP process for all qualified bidders to begin January 1st, 2011.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Director Buddy?
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, I see that discussion's underway. This thing ends June 30th. What happens between June or July 1st and December 31st? Where's it going to be seen at?
You're referring to the loss of the cable channel.
Right. It doesn't say it's been replaced. It just says it's in discussion.
Yeah, my expectation is that there is a must-carry rule, and that that Time Warner will have to find an alternate location on the dial for if not government TV, then for public access. So we expect to have not to lose that outlet.
As long as it's not the travel channel. So I like to watch
I
that.
think it might be one of those open places where there are blackouts right now between local affiliates and network.
Maybe we could replace the LA Lakers.
No, they play tonight at 6.
You know, I'm just thinking, since we know this is just around the corner in 30 days, maybe we ought to cut the advertisement that we're doing in the paper about Channel 75, knowing there is a change, and stay tuned for the updated deals, because otherwise you can, that thought process and learn to getting people to switch to something different might be more difficult.
Well, at the risk of being wrong, I do think that there is an alternate channel. I think it's in the works, and you know it never ceases to amaze me that people actually we have developed an audience for IID board meetings. People watch the whole thing, and it's not always, you know, in the public service ghetto early, you know, in the early morning hours. They're on Saturdays and they're in the weekdays, and they run multiple times. And I would expect that we'll have a fixed position on the dial that people can refer to.
Mr. Kelly, weren't we supplementing the county office on that channel?
You did that last year. I believe they requested $30,000 from IID, and we paid $15,000.
Right.
The County Office of Education is getting out of the public access management entirely. So it's already been decided that the County Office of Education will no longer maintain that channel. Our discussions and our representatives' discussions with Time Warner have been direct.
Will there be some type of fee charged to us if Time Warner picks that cable up?
If there is, we will come back to the board. I don't believe there is. I think that the FCC must carry provisions would apply, and there wouldn't be a fee associated with it.
Then the time arrangements would be determined by the cable company. You know,
I think it'd be very much the same as it is today, Director Hanks.
But then at the end of the year, then we would go out for an RFP, because I think that was an issue the time before.
It was a sole source contract. This is the third year of the arrangement with Spectrum. We have been contacted by other interested bidders, both locally and outside the Imperial Valley, and they'll all have a shot at it in the fall.
All right, thank you. Please vote. Number 13, adopt recommended positions.
Pat Swarthow and Jennifer Goodsell.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. Before you are 5 pieces of legislation that we ask for your support and or opposition to. There in front of you, you have a little synopsis on it, and I'll go over a little bit of it with you. I'm going to do the first 3. and then Jennifer will do the last two. I'll do the Assembly bills, and she'll do the Senate bills. And then we're just going to ask for one vote to recommend staff's recommendations, either to support or oppose. The first piece of legislation is Assembly Bill 1947. That's Fong who put that out, and he's a Democrat out of the South Bay area. This Assembly bill is on the Assembly floor right now. It has gone through all the hearings and now on the Assembly floor. The bill is intended to really assist the publicly owned utilities in achieving the California Solar Initiative goals established to install 3,000 megawatts of photovoltaic solar in California. And what this bill essentially will do will give us the flexibility to create a program that allows us to fund and get solar in our area. As you know, the investor-owned utilities, it's much easier to create those programs because not only do they have a rate that allows them to do that, but they also, their rates compared to our rates are extremely high. So people are taking on the initiative to put solar on their house when they're paying 23 or 30 cents or whatever it is. It's really simple. In our case, we have the 13-cent rate, and it's very difficult to get that rate of return. So this allows us to develop a program. Both SCAPA and CMUA are in support of this bill as well. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them, or I'll go on to the next bill. The Energy Department did review this as well and agrees with the support position. AB 2061, Carter is a Democrat out of the Rialto area. This particular piece of bill has been referred to the appropriations and is in suspense file. So we don't know if it's going to come out of suspense or not, but we recommend the opposition to it. This basically gives the California Public Utilities Commission the authority to come down and tell us what we have to do. And
not good.
No, it's not. And so we are, because we have over 100,000 customers, it's affecting ourselves, SMUD, and LADWP. And so we're really going to fight this. We don't think it's going to come out of suspense, and this is the second year of a 2-year bill, so if it doesn't come out of suspense, it's dead. But we want to have the ability to go and oppose it in case it does. Any questions on that one?
Who's the main supporter of that bill?
I don't have that.
Well, the IOUs.
Edison?
Yeah,
Oh,
the IOUs have always wanted us to be under the PUC.
So, the third bill is AB 2202. That's Manuel Perez's bill. This is tied to the general water bond that if that legislation passes, it allows $20 million to come back to help for the availability of water quality and public health safety on the New River. We got the recommendation from the executive office to support this. Right now, this has had no opposition to date. It's referred to the Senate committee. It's already gone completely through the Assembly side, voted out, and it's now in the Senate side in the Environmental Quality, Natural Resources, and Wildlife Committee. So we anticipate this sailing through pretty quick. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, just quickly, if it was approved, the $20 million, can it be used to cover the New River from like the border, down?
There's a strategic plan that they're putting together that will tie that money to specific projects on the New River.
But they're shooting for underground in the river to try to get it down to Highway 98 or whatever, right?
I'm not sure that the plan calls for that.
Pat, do you think that implementing or building more those wetlands along the river, could that money be used for that? To clean
Again,
to use our drain water and clean it up through the wetlands and have it flow down to the Salton Sea?
When you look at the bill itself, it's really tied to a strategic plan. And whatever that strategic plan is, it says here the bill would require that any funds appropriated pursuant to this provision for the New River be consistent with the strategic plan developed by California-Mexican Border Relationship Council.
And you don't have it yet?
I don't have that. I think they're...
Can we give input on this plan? Would there be an opportunity to comment on this plan?
This bill does anticipate
the underground. Because it's a public health project.
I'm only basing that on the explicit reference to the city of Calexico throughout. So
Okay.
I think the strategic plan is in collaboration with Calexico's interests.
All right.
Jennifer will now give the other two pieces.
On the Senate side, there's two bills that staff is requesting you consider for a position. The first is Senate Bill 1173, which we're requesting you oppose. It's been introduced by Senator Wolk, who's a Democrat that represents the Stockton area. The bill is on its way to its third reading and is currently opposed by the Association of California Water Agencies. The Porter-Cologne Water Quality Control Act establishes a statewide program for the control of the quality of all waters in the state. This bill would define raw water as surface or groundwater that has not been treated for purposes of this act. The current existing law declares that the use of potable domestic water for non-potable purposes is a waste or an unreasonable use of water if recycled water is available. And SB 1173 proposes to substitute the term raw water for the existing term potable domestic water. What this means is that the new law would read that raw or potable domestic water for non-potable municipal or industrial uses is a waste or an unreasonable use of water if recycled water is available. The initial intent of the bill was to reduce diversions from sensitive ecosystems and overdrafted groundwater basins, but the implications of this bill, if it were to be enacted with the current language, has farther-reaching ramifications, especially for agencies like IID. After several discussions with technical people in the water department, it was determined that while IID encourages local municipalities to implement water conservation measures and to use recycled water, the district should not support a piece of legislation that imposes restrictions of any kind on its source water supply, and that staff recommends the board oppose this piece of legislation.
Who else is opposing this bill? Do you have any agencies?
As of right now, it's all of the agencies that are members of the Association of California Water Agencies.
Who's sponsoring this bill?
This bill is sponsored by Senator Wolk. She's a Democrat that represents Stockton and Vacaville, and it's more intended to address the Bay Area, but because of the broad definition of raw water, it incorporates IID service territory and the water that we receive from the Colorado River into the bill.
So you could basically have something that we're using $19 water and we're using it effectively within the valley, and that has to go to $600 water. And it just kill many processes that we have.
Does the board have any further questions on that bill? If not, I'll move to the last one, and I'll be much more brief than I was on the first. Senate Bill 1303, which we're requesting you support, is also introduced by Senator Wolk. The bill is currently being read by Assembly, and it is supported by the Association of California Water Agencies. In 1997, the legislature passed and the governor signed SB 231. This is a bill that established a new provision in the California Endangered Species Act, removing the prohibition against the take of listed species caused by the accidental take of species on farms and ranches that occur in the course of routine and ongoing agricultural activities. The original bill had a 5-year sunset provision, and SB 1303 would extend the repeal date from January 1st, 2011 to January 1st of 2012. The Water Department supports the protections that this bill provides to the growers and requests that the board adopt a formal support position on this bill as well. Okay. Does the board have any questions on that?
No, I'll make a motion to support the recommendation by staff.
Second.
First and second, please vote.
I voted no. Do it again. I can't see very well.
Please vote again.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to
Also, just to get back to you on the Calexico issue, we will, that particular piece of legislation, we'll find out what agency that, if we can have input on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
adopt resolution approving a claims filing policy.
President Sanchez, members of the board, we discussed this item last week as an information item. Since that time, I smoothed out the claims presentation policy resolution a little bit. I took out, actually I did that work before we actually had the board meeting, but after the agenda item was originally prepared. But I took out the reference to class action litigation. It's really not the focus of this resolution. The law cuts both ways, and it's a little controversial. I did add some language about CEQA because some of the timeframes in CEQA for CEQA claims are actually shorter than government code claims. So we really don't want to include CEQA. Otherwise, the law is the same. It essentially requires that any types of claims for money damages would require the presentation of a government claim before the initiation of a lawsuit. This type of resolution and the use of Government Code 935 is very common among California agencies.
I move for approval.
I'll second it.
First and a second. Any comments? Please vote. Finance, adopt resolution regarding deferment of electric system revenues.
Mr. Broking.
I have before you a resolution to defer $53.5 million of income this year on the financial statements, and at the same time move $53.5 million into the rate stabilization fund. This current year, our expenses didn't really match our revenues as close as they have in the past. Our power supply costs were down considerably, and by doing this, it will help us to match not only our revenues and expenses this year, but going into the future also. And by establishing the rate stabilization fund, it's not a guarantee that it will guarantee stable rates, but it will help mitigate any rate increases that may occur.
Or mitigate the need for any rate increases.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Do we have any comments?
Or move for approval.
Second.
First and a second.
Greg, on the 53.5 million, was that part of the reduction in the supply and trading?
Yes, it was. The way I calculated it was the budgeted amount in the 2009 power supply trading budget in 2009 compared to the actual in 2009. So that's the 53.5 million.
The difference there is part of this year's budget moving forward. I thought there was 83 million.
The difference between the two was 80. I think it was 80 million. It might have been 80 some odd million between 2009 and 2008. But all we're proposing to defer is 53.5, which is what was budgeted to what was actual.
So the other then would just be carried over?
Well, it would be included in this year's. It wouldn't be deferred, so it would be included in the 09 financials.
Okay.
And we've got the next one.
Going to financial update through March 31st, 2010.
Yes, there's really only three items that I'd like to discuss on the financials. On the water and energy side, on the sales, both are through the first 3 months are down around 5 to 6% compared to budget. So I wanted to highlight that and for both of the departments. And then the only other thing that I would like to highlight is over on page 64. Since the end of the quarter, one thing that we have done is move some of the money out of the medium-term notes, which tend to be some of our lower-rated investments, and we're in the process of moving that into our higher-rated investments, principally U.S. Treasuries. So the next time, which would be for the June quarter, you'll see some changes in those categories, and just letting you know in advance that's happened.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll move that we acknowledge the receipts of financial report for March 31st, 2010.
Second.
First and a second. Please, are there any comments? Please vote. All right, and we'll conclude our meeting for today until 5 o'clock for our public workshop. Thank you.